Welcome to another episode of the Albino Rhino Beer Review, Beer Dweebs United. So today is the third day of the series of my top beers via style. So today we are going to look at barley wines. We are going to look at non-alcoholic beers. We're going to look at mild beers. And we're going to look at pilsners. And pilsners I have broken down into three subcategories: German, Czech, and other. And the reason I did that was there's just so many that it was just easier to break it down into the three different varieties, because nowadays not all pilsners are created equally. Correct? Correct. Okay, now that we're gone through that, yeah, I don't know where to start. I don't think anyone's watching tonight because there is another thing going on that I wasn't invited to. So hey, let's look at this, shall we? Let us pull up our lists. Let us pull up our lists. Yes, we shall do that. And we are going to start the night off with German Pilsners, I do believe. Yes, we're going to start the night off with German Pilsners. Now, here's the thing. German Pilsners, a lot of the German Pilsners I've had are German-styled Pilsners more so than German Pilsners. I do know, well, I've had lots of German Pilsners as well. I'm not huge on a lot of the export German beers. They don't seem to be, what they're exporting to us does not seem to be on the same par as what you would get if you were in Germany itself. Maybe that's because once it leaves Germany, once it's on an export out of Germany, you don't have to follow the German purity law per se, because you're not selling it within Germany. And in all honesty, does the purity law make the beer better? That's an arguable fact. We've talked about it on Beer Dweebs United hundreds of times in the past. Does it make a beer better to only be made with water, hops, malt, and yeast? Or is the ability to use adjuncts more useful for beer? And in all honesty, it's an adjunct as much as a lot of people are scared of adjuncts because of things like American adjunct lagers and stuff like that. An adjunct can be used to greatly and vastly make a beer superior to something that doesn't use it, depending on what you're using and depending on what you're going for. So, I mean, it's either way. I do find I have had a few German beers that were brought back to me from Jason, who owns Brimstone, because his wife is German, so she would go there and they would bring some stuff back. And I will not deny that stuff right from Germany does seem to be cleaner and crisper than a lot of the beers we get here that are from Germany. That being said, is that completely product of following the purity law, or is it solely because of what gets exported to us? I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, let's get going, shall we? I only put down three beers for my German Pilsners. And number one is from Wellington Brewing Company, and that was a Lager Dave Pilsner from Wellington. It was 5.5% alcohol by volume. I had that in May of 2018. That would have been at I believe that would have been at or right around my beer festival. No. Yeah, maybe. I can't remember fully exactly where that was in comparison to my beer fest. It was right before my beer festival because they had sent me a care package and it was in it. And they had sent me the care package because what they were trying to do was see my actual thoughts of two of their new beers. And that was one of the two in there. And yeah, I do remember that now. And it was a great Pilsner. But as was the case until I turned about 38, it was just a Pilsner, right? I didn't really care about Pilsners. I didn't really respect a Pilsner. It was just a beer. And it was a beer I could share with my dad. It was a beer I could share with people that weren't big craft beer guys, but it wasn't something I really looked for. And even now, it's not something I look for per se, but I'm more akin to drink one now than I used to be. Number two on this list would be Wernesgrüner Pils from Wernesgrüner uh, in Germany. And it was the cleanest, crispest German Pilsner I've ever had from Germany. And I remember I didn't think I was going to like it because it was a Pilsner I was able to get at the LCBO. It was in it was in kind of like a brown can with green writing, and I didn't think I was going to care much for it. I can't deny that a lot of the German beers that are sold in Canada are fairly nondescript, nonchalant little offerings, and it wasn't something that I was expecting to like, yet I did. The third one on my German Pilsner list is from Farnham Ales and Lagers, and it is number 27, which was 4.8% alcohol by volume. And I remember that was one that my buddy Randy, who is no longer with us, unfortunately, my buddy Randy would go to this big rock concert in Montebello, Quebec, every year, and there was this Dépanneur right by where the rock concert was, and they had like 85 beers to choose from at all times, and he would always go in and he would pick me up 24, he'd drop them off, I'd pay him for them, and it was just something awesome that he did because he was a guy that thought about all of his friends, and he's like, I'm somewhere that has beers Chad doesn't have. Chad loves this. He gives me a budget every year about what I'm allowed to spend, and well, what his wife, my ex-wife, but wife at the time, would allow him to spend, and I pick the stuff up and drop it off for him. And if I can't get it to him, I give it to the cantankerous cook. The cantankerous cook drops it off to him, and he hands the money to the cantankerous cook, and he brings it to me. So it was one of those loving things that every year I knew I was going to get a 2-4 of just random Quebec beers. And that year he grabbed 13 or 14 Farnham beers that year. So yeah, it was on there. Next we have Czech Pilsners, and I do believe I have 2 pages of Czech Pilsners here. This time I didn't write them out as much. I did a screenshot of them because why not, right? Like I could, so I might as well. So Czech Pilsners. Let's start with from Junction Craft Brewing in Toronto, Ontario, in the Junction. Bohemian Pils, which was a 5% alcohol Czech Pilsner. It was one of the first Pilsners I'd had in a long time that actually didn't have that full-on dirty, spicy taste, which I know is normal for them, but it was one of the first, I guess I could say it was one of the first craft Pilsners I'd had that wasn't over hopped, because a lot of them were. Next, I have from Hearthstone Brewing, and this is a 4.5% alcohol one, and it's just called Pils. Hearthstone, I'd had a few beers from Hearthstone. I'm not 100%. I don't 100% remember which one of my buddies picked the Hearthstones up for us. I had a whole line of people that would pick things up for me to review because my LCBO didn't have a lot, and it's not like they would come and just go, here's free beer. It was, Chad, here's some beer to try. Okay, here's the money, thank you. Sometimes it was, I had a case of it, here's one beer. Oh, thank you. But I think Simon brought the Hearthstone back from a trip in the US. Then we also have from Block 3, and I've talked about Block 3 a few times. Block 3 is in St. Jacobs, Ontario. They're near the legendary St. Jacobs Market. And this was a Czech Pils at 5% alcohol. It was Jaromír Lager. Yeah, that's right. Jaromír Lager. And Jaromír Lager was so clean, so crisp, so easy drinking. There was no way I could complain about that. And I was a big fan of Jaromír Lager. So if you're a big fan of Yarmir Yager, how can you not be a big fan of Yarmir Lager, right? It just, it makes sense to be a fan. I see there are some comments. We will get to them when we switch over to the next Pilsner, which is the Pilsner Other. But yeah, so I had the Yarmir Lager, and it even had basically like a side profile of a Yarmir Yager on it. And I don't know if it still does or not, but yeah. Also in the Czech Pilsners, we have from Sukan's Brewing Company and Sukrans Brewing Company. They're in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and they had the Cult Classic Pilsner at 5% alcohol by volume, and it was another one that was very, very easy drinking, very easy to approach. And I remember walking into that brewery, and it was me and my wife, my current wife Alicia. When we took this job, we were flown out to Winnipeg for our training, and your training went from 8 a.m. till 5:30 p.m. every day, and then you had your night. You could do whatever you wanted. You were at your hotel. So one, and we didn't do much on the weeknights unless it was within walking distance, because for those of you that aren't from Winnipeg, Winnipeg isn't known as the safest place. It is kind of rough. And after 9 o'clock at night, there is like a $25 flat rate in a cab that needs to be paid ahead of your cab even moving, so that you don't try to rob the cab or you don't run away without paying, that type of thing. So for the most part, unless we could walk there in the evenings, we didn't go, and we would do a lot of walks that were roundabout ways, because you didn't want to go through the murder alleyways, because Winnipeg was also a place where it had a lot of those alleyways. When you would have that really skinny street to drive through for where all the driveways and everything for a house was. Yeah, no lights, no nothing. Murder alleyways. They were murder alleyways. Actually, in the month we were there was like 5 murders. One of them was in one of those murder alleyways right by our hotel. So we walked into that brewery, and the owner was there, and he was drinking, because it was a weekend that we went, and he looked over at me, and he kind of smiles, looks to his servers, he points to me, he's talking to his servers, and then he turns around and goes, "Are you the albino Rhino?" And I go, yes, I am. He goes, "I've watched you for years. You're here to try my stuff, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yep." He goes, "Awesome." He goes, "I even have one that isn't on tap that I'll let you try." I go, "Yeah, you charge me for it, I'll try it." And I bought his flight plus a bottle of the one he had in the back that wasn't released yet. And there was 7 beers in total, I do believe, and I really liked 4 of them. One of them was okay, and the other 2 I didn't like. And when I was done, he came and we talked about why I didn't like those 2, and it was just fun to do. But his Pilsner was a solid, easy drinking Pilsner. I can't complain about the way that beer turned out. Okay. Then we have from Brasseur de la Côte, which is in New Brunswick, even though it sounds like it would be in Quebec, the Jabberwock. And the Jabberwock was a 4.5% alcohol Pilsner. And again, it was just an easy drinking Pilsner. And I think I might have liked that one more than I liked a lot of them, because that one I've had very recently. And like I said, now that I'm getting older, I'm liking Pilsners more. And I do see there are comments, and like I said, we will get to them. Last one of the Pilsner Czech before we move on to Pilsner Other. And before we move on to Pilsner Other, we will get to those comments. Godspeed Brewing. 4.4% alcohol. First and foremost, Godspeed Brewing does a lot of Eastern European styles, and they do them very well. And I'm not going to even pretend that I can say, yeah, I'm not even going to pretend that I can say this. I'll try, and then I'll let you see what it is. And it's Sklepnik V. O'Kelly. So I'm going to guess Sklepnik 5 O'Kelly. And yeah, you probably can't see it. No. Oh, wait. There we go. Yeah, there's no chance I could ever say that. But it was a very, very good beer. Let's see what the comments are. Style. VOP, we are getting to that tonight. That is one of the topics for the night. Yay, Block 3. Yes, bonjour. Bonjour to you there, Guy. I always thought it was like brewer of the coast. Okay. One second, guys. Sorry. My wife cannot figure out my code. She asked me for something, and I gave it to her in a code. And I even explained to her how to use the code, and she can't figure out the code. So here we go, right? Pilsner Other. Okay, first and foremost, we have from Steam Whistle Plus, or Steam Whistle Unfiltered, which is under the Pilsner Other, but I mean, in all honesty, an unfiltered Pilsner is kind of like a Keller beer, which does have its own. It does have its own category, a Keller beer, but a Keller beer is technically pretty damn close to just an unfiltered Pilsner. So the fact that that counts as Pilsner Other is kind of odd to me, but it was in the Pilsner Other, so there you go. Steam Whistle Plus, very good beer. Originally, to get it, you had to go in and know it existed. It was one of those secret menu items. And you had to go in and you could only get it at the brewery. I do believe now you still can only get it at the brewery, but now it's not as hidden. And you'd have to go in and go, I want Steam Whistle Plus. And they would go and they would pour you a Steam Whistle Plus. And I got that the first time I went to the brewery, because you had two choices, right? You could walk in and they would give you a free sample if you walked in just off the street. They stopped doing that after people learned about the free sample. But you could just walk in and get your first sample for free. That doesn't happen anymore because too many people abused it. But then you could walk in and you would get a sample right off the bat. And if you went to do the tour, that sample was free. If you didn't, that sample cost you. And you could have anything that was on their tap. For a very long time, the only thing they had on their tap was just regular Steam Whistle, right? Because they were a brewery that said we do one thing and we do it very well. And they did make a very good Pilsner. Steam Whistle is probably the quintessential Canadian Pilsner. Um, I don't drink it often. I did review it a few times, and I've talked about it a few times, and me and Cam talked about it as well. The very first time I had Steam Whistle, it tasted like I was licking a skunk's ass. And Steam Whistle would be sold in the green bottles, and a lot of bars would get it. But back then, you could get a Canadian for very, very cheap. The price, the discrepancy in price between a craft beer and a macro beer was not as small as it is now. So you would go into a bar and you would order a Canadian, say, and a lot of times you would get your Canadian for like $2.50. Well, your bottle of Steam Whistle is going to be $5. So not a lot of people would buy the Steam Whistle. It would sit on the shelf, and the longer it sat there in the green bottle, the more that the enzymes in the hop molecules would turn into basically the same chemical in skunk spray. And then you would open that green bottle and you would get that beautiful skunk shit in your face, just like you did with just like you would do with Heineken and Corona before they started using hop extracts to not have the same problem with UV light. Because the bottle needs to be green because that differentiates it and it makes it look prettier. So the first time I ever had it, it tasted like I licked a skunk's ass, and I hated it. And I was there, and they gave me a can right off the canning line, and that's one of the things they would do too when you do the tour. As soon as you finish the tours were, the canning line was basically always going because that's the type of just capacity they had. And as soon as you finish the tour, they would pull a can off the canning line and hand it to you. Like, the can is still warm from the sealer, but it was amazing beer. And I remember I re-reviewed it, and I'm like, I have to be honest. As long as I get this beer within a certain amount of time, and we did a test because they gave us a case. And what we did, well, they gave us two cases, but one of the cases we used in the Century Club, because basically all we were going to do with that case of beer that they gave us was use it for something that we could do online that wouldn't cost us anything. We didn't want to be biased towards it or anything like that. But the other case we did something special with. And what we did was I put it in the basement because I don't refrigerate my beer. And every day I would have one can of their beer for up to 24 days to see when it was at the point that it did not taste like an amazing Pilsner anymore. And what I found out is as long as the beer was within the first 12 days of life, it was awesome. And then it started dropping, and it dropped fast. And I've never seen that happen with a Pilsner. I've never seen a Pilsner have like a nosedive in freshness that quickly. I've seen some IPAs and stuff like that have that type of nosedive. Never a Pilsner. But I cannot deny that the quintessential Canadian Pilsner is Steam Whistle. Steam Whistle Plus is even better. Then we have Punk Rock Pilsner from Brimstone Brewing, which is basically almost like Firestone Walker's Pivo Pils. It's basically a slightly hoppier Pilsner, right? It's the New World Pilsner, the New Age Pilsners. And it was a great, great beer as well. Talking about Firestone Walker's Pivo Pils from Firestone Walker, that was the first New Age Pilsner I've ever had. And I was really a big fan of it. I really was. It just took a beer style that I was so bored of at the time and just reinvented it. With that, almost a macro brewery. It's more a regional brewery here in Quebec. Belgoil, their Belgoil Pilsner, solid fucking easy drinking Pilsner. Excuse me. You can't really get worked up about it. Now, here's one I don't even want to admit was on my top list because of things that happened, and I think for me it's the whole scorched earth thing that ended up happening with them. But Innocente's Encounter, so Innocent Encounter, Innocente Encounter, another good Pilsner, but they went completely scorched earth about a month ago, and it's sad. He lost a lot of business overnight. I don't know if he's going to rebuild or not, but he did his whole scorched earth stuff with his business account, and that probably wasn't the smartest thing to do, but it's what he did. There are more comments, so we will get to more comments. Then we will move on to milds. I do believe non-alcoholic are after mild. And then we have barley wine. Steam Whistle Plus made it explode. Good to know, Guy. Good to know. Shouldn't you be over on another right now, Guy? It's Wednesday night, isn't it? Okay, yep. So we have mild ales next. Whole shot from Red Line Brew House at 3.7% alcohol by volume. Red Line was what? Red Line's Barrie, Ontario, I do believe. And they had a lot of interesting beers come out of there. Red Line is Barrie, right? There's one in Guelph and there's one in Barrie, and they have similar styles of beer. Red Line is Guelph. No, Red Line is Barrie. Yeah, it was near Flying Monkeys. I believe I'm correct on that. But their mild was great. There's not enough breweries in Canada that make milds, and that's a big sadness for me. And I get it, milds are a niche beer, but you would think that milds would be more of a wanted beer. You could, especially when you have a tap room or a tasting room or a brew pub, because you can get somebody to drink more milds than you can get them to drink a 6% alcohol IPA and let them leave. And so in the end, you can make more money, but I do understand that there are a lot of people that are dead fast against paying full price for something that is under 4% alcohol. Now, a mild should be somewhere in the 2 to 4% range, averaging around 3 to 3.5. And there's not enough of them out there. But also on top of all that I just talked about, there's also the fact that there's not a lot. I shouldn't say there's not. What I should say is there's not a lot of brewers that seem to have enough faith in themselves to make a mild, because I was going to say there's not enough brewers that can make a mild, but there is. They just are too scared, because you can't hide imperfections of the beer in a mild. It's going to show. There's not enough flavor. There's not enough body to hide a screw up, and because of that, there's a lot that won't make them, which is too bad, because again, they're great beers. Next is from Sarnia, and the Sarnia Refined Fool Brewing Company. Their Carpin Tunnel Syndrome, and that was a 3.4% alcohol mild. And again, both of these were dark milds, which are more the British style of mild. You didn't see a lot of golden milds in Ontario. There is a couple now, but for the most part, you're looking at brown and black milds. Sometimes maybe some reds, and that's just because you could use certain malts to just make a beer look like it's going to taste more than it's going to taste. And last but not least, in the milds, and really the only reason I only have like 3 is there's only like 19 I've had, and there's a drop in quality. And this one's from Great Lakes Brewery, and it was made right around the time that fake news became a saying, and it's Alternative Facts. And Alternative Facts was, again, 3.8% alcohol, and it was made by Great Lakes Brewery in Toronto, who does get a lot of props from me on these lists. They have had quite a bit of beers on this list, and they make some splendid beers. If you're a big IPA fan, they make a lot of splendid beers. For me, I'm not as big an IPA fan as I am a stout and porter type of guy. So for me, they're just not as in your face or loved as they used to be for me. Yeah. See what they are. A French wizard is precisely where he means to be. What's your favorite brewery we went to? A favorite brewery we went to. In all honesty, Overflow. No, fuck. We did Beyond the Pale, we did Spark, and we did Tooth and Nail. Of those 3, Tooth and Nail would have been my favorite. Okay. There's a couple with a baby in the room beside me now. It's better than the rabbits, I guess. Love your reviews. You got me wanting to try craft beer. Cheers, sir. Well, thank you for that. Cheers to you as well, and slanche, and hopefully you find some stuff you like, because there is a lot of stuff that I don't like, and there's a lot of stuff I really do like. What do we got? Hey, bud, how's your solitary confinement going? Yes, there is. My solitary confinement is going. I've not gone insane yet, but I do have 7 more days, so there's lots of time for that. Yes, there is 2 GLBs, one in Ohio and one in Toronto. The GLB in Toronto is Great Lakes Brewery. The GLB in Ohio is Great Lakes Brewing. Different breweries. They both were Great Lakes Brewing at one point, and then because the Toronto one was the newer of the 2, they ended up having to change their name, so they were not getting some copyright infringement claims. Uh, Ohio's GLB makes some nice beers as well. The Edmund Fitzgerald and stuff like that. But I of the two, I would maybe it's a little bit of a homerish thing, but I think GLB in Toronto is more my thing than GLB in Ohio. But I haven't had I've had more offerings from GLB Toronto than I've had from GLB Ohio. Okay, non-alcoholic beers. And remember, after I do non-alcoholic, if anyone knows how I can use a cell phone to invite other people into a chat through StreamYard instead of a laptop or a computer, I would more connection here. What's going on? Sorry, guys, 1 second. There we go. Is their main server kicks you off the internet every so often in case you're no longer in a room and then you have to sign in again. So it was just making me sign in again. Before we go on to alcoholics, let's see how we're doing. So hopefully everything that I was saying went through. And yeah, we should be good to go again. Ooh, there's a big comment. We will get to that. We just got to do these first. Okay, so non-alcoholic. We will start with Partake Brewing's IPA. Partake Brewing's IPA was probably the first non-alcoholic beer that I tried that I was like, oh my god, that tastes just like a beer. And it really did. It tasted just like an IPA, though maybe more like a India Session, an ISA, because it was a lot lighter body than an IPA would be. Next, from Le Boc Ale in Quebec, the Berliner Sun. And Berliner Sun was a non-alcoholic Berliner Weiss, and how can I not like a non-alcoholic Berliner Weiss when it tastes like a non-alcoholic Berliner Weiss? I love Berliner Weisses, so you give me a non-alcoholic Berliner Weiss, and I'm a-okay with that. That's not my baby you hear. That's the baby in that room. I'd have nothing to do with that one. Probably the highest ranked non-alcoholic beer I've ever given. Klosthaler Dry Hopped from Red Burger Group. Klosthaler Dry Hopped again tasted like a real beer. It was a dry hopped beer, and I think the dry hopping was exactly how you didn't taste the under attenuation that a lot of non-alcoholic beers have, because that was purchased from premiumnearbeer.ca, and they had about 40 different non-alcoholic beers to choose from, and I think that was one of the only ones that I really liked. Now, the guy that owns premiumnearbeer.ca is also the guy that owns Partake Brewing, which is a non-alcoholic brewing company, which he invented because he had Crohn's disease, and he needed non-alcoholic, he needed low carb, low calorie, and he somehow designed something that was all of those. Next, from Grupa Zavich Pivo Bezalkoholovi, because it's Lovi, I guess, because there is no W in Polish. It's a double V, so I guess it must be Lovi. I know English. I can speak a tiny bit of French. I can speak even less Gaelic. One thing I really wish I had learned from my family, but at the time I didn't care. Now it's too late because my grandmother is dead and the other one has dementia. So I cannot pronounce a lot of Eastern European stuff at all. I murder it when I try, but I try because I try. And then I piss people off. Why would you even talk if you don't know? Well, how the fuck else am I going to figure it out if I don't fucking try, right? And phonetically, it doesn't make sense to me because my mind thinks in English. Um, and Quebec French, because Canadian French is not France French. Uh, and again, a little bit of Irish Gaelic. So, and lastly, on the non-alcoholic side, well, you know what? I should say Caliper, which is a Guinness beer. Caliper is a really good one as well. It wasn't on my list, but it was a really good one. But my last one on this list is from Loblaws. It's PC brand. It's the PC Red Brew. And the PC Red Brew is probably, it's not my highest ranked. It's not the best tasting non-alcoholic beer, but it's probably my favorite non-alcoholic beer. You can get a 12 pack for $6.99. Sometimes, usually it's $6.99. I've seen it up to $9.99, but between $6.99 and $9.99, dependent on if you're at a Zehrs or a Loblaws or a No Frills or wherever you've happened to have found it. And on top of that, it's low caloric intake. I believe the red is something between 35 and 50 calories, and the blonde, I believe, is 30. And it tastes just like Rickard's Red, so it doesn't taste bad. So it's basically Rickard's Red at like 35 calories and 0.5% alcohol and $6.99. Like you can't beat what you're getting with it. And that's just where I'm looking at with that, right? Like you can't beat it. The blonde brew kind of just tastes like your average macro lager. So I mean, if you're a big Canadian fan, you know what? Not even Canadian, probably your lower end macro lager. So if you're I don't know if you like Laker or Brava or something like that, you'd probably be okay with the PC Blonde Brew, but PC Red Brew is where I go with the non-alcoholics. I did see there was that big comment, so before we get to Barley Wines, we'll get to that, but I want to finish this here little Dixie cup of beer. And we'll pour some more grisette. Put that over there. Put that over there and see what that big old comment was, shall we? Okay, Jamie C. You have to look at my Morphia eye because it's the eye that sees better. I like the non-alcoholic beer from Athletic Brewing Company. They have a great IPA that actually tastes like an IPA. Non-alcoholic brews have come a long way in the past 5 to 10 years. Okay, you know what? I fully agree with you. In the past 5 to 10 years, a non-alcoholic beer has changed significantly from what it was. Because it used to just be basically a malt beverage, right? Like every time you drank it, you were basically drinking Malta or Tiger Malt or anything like that. Like it was just, here's my under attenuated beer. And here's my wort. It's my wort. All I did was make wort and put it in a bottle. So, yeah. I have never had anything from Athletic Brewing Company yet. I do see them all the time on Amazon and everything else, so I will get to them at some point. But the Sober Carpenter stuff, which is Quebec's, like another Quebec brewery, Sober Carpenter made me so sad that I haven't really gone out of my way to get the other guys yet. So like, and there was a whole bunch of ones from Wells. Wells had a huge list of non-alcoholic beers, and I was actually going to order some up to the Arctic, but it was like a $70 shipping, which makes sense because we're going to the Arctic. But I'm like, you know what? No, and I just didn't do it. Then there was a bunch of companies I had never heard of, and a bunch of beers that I never heard of, and it was really intriguing to see. And like you said, the non-alcoholics have come a long way. You can even see that in what's available. So last but not least, on the barley wine front is well, on the barley wine front, on the style front for today is barley wines, and tomorrow I think I'm going to do pale ales and IPAs and maybe regular lagers, because I might as well get those out of the way, right? Yeah, and those might be broken down into different sub variants as well, because there is so many out there. But barley wines, let's get to barley wines. In my younger days, I loved barley wines, and I loved English barley wines more than American barley wines, because why wouldn't I love English barley wines more than American barley wines? I'm a malt maniac, not a hop head. And it almost seems like Americans put all those hops in their barley wines to make it so that you have to age it. You know, look, we have 10,000 pounds of hops in here. You're going to want to age this. So, like, yeah. Yeah. Let's start on this page. So first and foremost, from Innocent Gun, their Espresso barley wine. Never thought Innocent Gun would make a barley wine, but they did, and it was good. Excuse me, I don't know if they still make it. I don't know at all. Bourbon barrel aged Flying Mouflon from Trogues Independent Brewing in the U.S. 13.4% alcohol, and the one I had was a 2015 vintage, and wow, was that a beautiful beer. And I do believe I had that, yeah, actually I did have that in 2015 as well. So I had it the same year it was out, and it was good, which amazed me. Niagara College, Rudolph's Red Nose Ale, barrel aged 2013 vintage, which I had in 2015. So Rudolph's Red Nosed Ale is a beer that is made every winter. Some years they barrel age it, some years they don't. But it is actually John Downing, the brewmaster professor's recipe. So he has his recipe, and the students make it. And it's a recipe he's been carrying around for 40 years. He's had it since the 80s. Well, since 80, so 42 years now. He's actually brewed it at several breweries. For those of you that don't know who John Downing is, John Downing has opened up, oh, I think he said 110 breweries in the world. He's opened up breweries on aircraft carriers in the U.S. military. He opened up Welland's very first brew pub. He has been all over the world opening breweries. And now he teaches the Brewmaster Professor program at, well, the Brewmaster and Brewery Engineer program at Niagara College. And he's an amazing, amazing person to go to for information on anything brewery or brewery Vienna, the collectibles and shit like that, right? He knows it all. Okay, we also have barrel-aged Bigfoot from Sierra Nevada, and this was one that I had in 2014, and it would have been the 2013 vintage. I've had a few different barrel-aged Bigfoots. I do believe I've had like 8 different vintages of that beer, but 2013 is the one that has stood out. We also have, from a brewery that doesn't exist anymore, they were a contract brewer. Ryan was the brewmaster there. Ryan was also the brewmaster at the time for Collective Arts, which was at the time a contract brewer that was brewing out in Nickelbrook. He was also the Nickelbrook brewmaster. But his Stormy Monday from Bush Pilot Brewing Company, and that was an 11% alcohol beer. Then he came up with the collaboration beer 1105, which originally started as a barley wine with Sawdust City, because both him and Sam Corbeil of Sawdust City had their same birthday. It was November 5th. Just one of them was a little older than the other. So every 1105 they would do a beer together, and they would be sold at both breweries. And they've done a few different styles, but usually with a barley wine. You also had the old Mill Street barley wines that you would get in the ceramic bottles, and I had a lot of those too. And they were very good beers. Mill Street now owned by Labatt. I don't know if they're still making. Last barley wine I have on this list, and before I get to that big comment that just came up, from Great Lake Brewery, Beard of Zeus at 13% alcohol. So Beard of Zeus was Kyle's beer. Kyle was the brewmaster and owner for Half Hours on Earth in Seaforth, Ontario. However, he was not the brewmaster or owner of Half Hours on Earth in Seaforth, Ontario at the time Beard of Zeus was made. Beard of Zeus was a homebrew competition entry for GLB, and the winner got to make their beer on the big system. And he was the winner, and they made Beard of Zeus on the big system and sold it in bottles. It was a beautiful beer. It was fucking fantastic. And I remember just gushing for that beer. Guy said that Steam Whistle Plus made his pants explode. Beard of Zeus made my pants. That's why I have the Beard of Zeus. No, like so. And it was one of those beers that on the bottle it was like, oh, you age this for a year, and I'm like, fuck you. I don't buy a beer to sit on it and leave it in a closet for a year. And I drank it fresh, and I did have one to age as well. Fresh, it was amazing. Aged, it was amazing. Kyle was really good at what he did. And after he made that beer, and after he saw what a lot of different beer critics and different beer judges and beer writers had to say about his beer, he thought, hey, I can do this. And he opened up Half Hours on Earth, which no longer exists. Half Hours on Earth has folded, but it folded because they wanted to go in a different direction, and they moved on to a different company, an environmental company. It was a great beer, and I wish that beers like that would come out more often. I wish that things like that would happen more often. It was a really cool concept, and it was a really cool idea, and it gave somebody the push to go and follow his dream for a little while. Just ordered a 12 pack of various alcohol free beers from Labatt Ale. Thanks for reminding me about them. I like their Doug. I'm glad. Because that's kind of what I'm here for, I guess. And like I said, Athletic Brewing, I have not tried their stuff. I can't say whether they're good or not. I have thought about trying their stuff. I think what I don't like about a lot of the non-alcoholic brewing companies is that they expect you to order a 12 pack of their beer, like a 12 pack of a single beer. I just want to try it because I've had too many non-alcoholic beers that have sucked. And I think that's the one thing Partake does better than a lot of them is Partake has like 7 different beers now, and you can get a 6-pack that has one of each of their core 6. And if you don't like them, well, then you only have one to drink. So I think that's my biggest concern with a lot of them. I think I could find 4 packs of the athletic ones on Amazon, but if I went right through them, I had to order a 12 pack. And I just haven't ordered from Amazon because I don't know what's going on with me and my wife and my family yet. There has been talk of us moving to a different community. So I haven't wanted to order anything because if I order things, it takes like 2 to 6 weeks to see it. And I don't want it to end up in PUV if I'm not going to be in PUV anymore. Ask some questions, make some comments. I'm going to go take a pee. I'm going to be nice and turn on my tap because I don't want you to hear me pee. But I'll be right back and we'll see what comments have gone on. feel good. I knew that I would. I feel good. Oh, nobody had questions or comments while I was gone. Come on, we're done our styles for the night. So you guys need to talk to me now. You need to talk to me to talk to you to talk to me to talk to you to talk to me to talk to you. That's what has to happen. Unless you've all left, you just don't care anymore. Fuck that albino. He's in solitude. Fuck him. I really like the I got a call today, and it was the office downstairs, and they're like, "Hey, so you've been here since Friday?" I go, "Yeah." And I think it's Wednesday. I go, "Yeah." And they go, Our housekeeping hasn't been in there yet." I go, "No." They're like, "Oh, don't you want your room cleaned?" I go, "Do you not realize I'm in quarantine right now?" They're like, "Oh, yeah. Oh, I guess you don't then." No, I don't. Thanks, though. Bring me some toilet paper. I'm out. Two rolls didn't go long enough. I did hear through the grapevine that though I'm not allowed to return to PUV until the 30th, that on the 25th I'm allowed to step foot outside of my room. I don't know what I'm going to do. If I open that door and walk outside, ooh, what am I going to do? I haven't seen the outside world since Friday. Ooh, I don't have to just walk back and forth 8,000 times like this. I can go in there. Really excited. Really excited. Let's be honest, I'm not going anywhere anyway. I'm blind and alone in a city I don't know. What am I going to do? I just found out that my job is not paying for my hotel for my quarantine, nor any of my food for my quarantine. So I'm not spending any more money. I'm gonna go on a hunger strike until I go back to PUV. I'm a 300-pound man. I can afford to lose some weight. Fuck. Is there anybody? Oh, there's only two of you. You're not saying a thing. Come on, guys, talk to me. Say hello. You don't talk to me, I'm going to show my tits. You don't want to see a man's tits. It's going to happen. Oh, somebody said something, so I don't have to show my tits. I bought a 24-pack of Athletic 4 6-packs. Which ones did you get? I do have a non-alcoholic beer right here. I have had one of these in the past. This is the Our Compliments Blonde Lager. And it's 35 calories. I didn't realize I had one of these because when I had it, the can looked a lot different. We saw a comment come through. The four most popular, I don't know. I agree. That's the thing with a lot of grocery store chain ones. They're not amazing, but the price is right for what you're getting. Yeah, see it. I can stomach it. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it at all. I got some more garbage to take out of the room tonight. I've been filling up the garbage can in the ice room. And then we'll see how much weight I can lose as of tomorrow, because today's the day I was told, oh yeah, we're not paying for anything. I'm like, excuse me? They're like, well, you were in quarantine already. I go, yeah, I was in quarantine already this year, and this quarantine is because of that quarantine, because nobody wanted to test me. You didn't want to pay for the PCR test, and they refused to do the PCR test. So now I'm in quarantine again. They're like, well, we're not paying for anything, and you're not getting... They actually told me I'm not getting paid for my 2-week quarantine either, that I was going to be SOL and get unpaid time. And I go, okay, well, you know what? I already have one foot out the door. I'm in the South right now. I just won't get on the plane and come back. And they're like, what do you mean? I go, I have like 15 job offers, so I'm not coming back. They're like, no, we'll pay you. Okay, that's what I thought you would do. That's what I thought you would do. That's what I thought you would do. And then they actually tried to call my bluff. They called my wife, and they're like, he says he's not coming back. And she goes, why? What did you do? And they told her, and she goes, you do know that before you said that, I had this argument with him last night that he was just going to go find a job out in Saskatchewan, and when I came down on my next vacation, I was going to join him. She goes, he has like 12 companies headhunting him right now. They're like, oh. Yeah. No problem going. So angry. So very angry. Excuse me. Oh, that non-alcoholic beer gives you the burps. Oh. So what do we want to talk about, guys? There's 2 of you. Let's talk about something. Talk about anything. I don't care. I still have a bunch of Block 3 aged stouts for you, including the first run when they just opened. Don't be angry at the individual. Yes, they do give... Which individual am I angry at? I'm angry at that individual because that individual is the one that was able to say yes. They originally said no. They're who it went to. And they're the ones that contacted me. And they're like, yeah, I'm not paying you for this because you were in quarantine for COVID-19 in January. And I said, yes, because I had a rapid test that said I had COVID-19. And then I went to the health center and they said, well, we're not testing you. You have to go to quarantine. And I said to you, well, I have a vacation in 3 months. I need somebody to give me a PCR test so this can be on record so I can get back into Nunavik in 3 months. And they said, well, we're not paying for the PCR test. If they're not going to give it to you, you just quarantine. So I just quarantined like I was told by public health and by my employer. And then I came down here and I go back. And as per was noted, I was carrying a viral load still because, and only me, the rest of the family actually had no viral load left, but I was still carrying a viral load. How do I know it's still the viral load from January? Because I'm still testing negative on rapid tests. And then they're like, oh no, we're not paying you for this. You were already in quarantine. I go, and when that happened, I told you I have a vacation in 2.5 months and I need a PCR test so that I can get back into the region. And you said, too bad, so sad, go quarantine. So now you're telling me I did what you told me to do and I did what public health told me to do, and fuck you, Chad, you're going to be out like $7,000 for 2 weeks. And they're like, oh, yeah. Okay, then I'm just not coming back. What? I'm just not coming back. I'm going to cancel the rest of my hotel. I'm going to go to Ottawa. From Ottawa, I'm going to take one of the jobs that I've been offered in Saskatchewan. I'm going to go to Saskatchewan. I'm going to buy a house, and I'm going to sit in that house alone in Saskatchewan until the summer when my wife comes down for a vacation, and then she isn't coming back. That's not what's going to happen. Just watch. And, yeah, now we're here. Yeah. Well, Doug, it looks like it's just me and you, and those stouts sound awesome. No, I don't have a balcony. Not stressed out either. I'm actually in a good place. It's my wife that's stressed out. She's scared I'm not getting on the plane next Wednesday. She's legitimately scared she's not going to see me again until the summer. And, yeah. Like, you really think I would just leave you and the kids? And she's like, I know how angry you are right now and how much you hate what we're dealing with right now. I think you would. And I go, no, I wouldn't. I can't wait to hold you again. Somebody's messaging me. Oh, somebody's sending me a friend request again that I've already denied twice. And like I was saying, it seems like it's just me and you here right now, and I don't want to take any more of your time. And I'm going to go and see if I can get other people joined up on a cell phone. And if I can, I'll try and do that tomorrow. I'll try and log in through StreamYard and do it that way so that I can send out join links. What's this one? An annoying volcano stopped me. Yeah, no, I think the most annoying thing about it all was that everybody else was free of the viral load except for me. And I was like, of course it was me that still had it. I mean, I've got the morphia, I've got the albinism, I've got all that stuff going, right? So why wouldn't I hold the virus? But I was the only one of us all that actually had long COVID. I had symptoms for a little over a month. So it made sense that I was the one that still had the viral load because my wife my wife was about 6 days. My kids were 3 or 4, and I was over a month of. But what I got was I was tired. I was extremely tired. I was extremely weak, and it was hard for me to even get out of bed. And it was it was almost as if I was back in a full-fledged depression hit, except I couldn't lift things anymore, and I was out of breath after a few minutes of work, which made my wife very sad. Yeah, yeah, my wife would not last for 2 weeks with my extended family while I sat here. She would murder them, and then she would murder me when she finally saw me again. Yeah, I escaped the virus until January 17th, 2022. What happened was, it blew up in PUV. It really blew up in PUV, and at one point we lost 6 of our staff members in the span of 2 days, and they all had been at work, and they got called at work to be told they had COVID and they had to leave. And I said to our boss, I'm like, shouldn't we close and deep clean? She was like, no, we're fine. They didn't come to work. I'm like, but they were called by public health at work. And she's like, no, we're fine. And like 3 days later, me and my wife had it. And I'm like, yeah, that's what happens when you don't close and deep clean your store. But hey, whatever. And then there was other people that had it, and they were scared of saying anything. And so in the end, PUV had an explosion of cases, and they were only testing you with a PCR if you had come from Montreal. So if you were in PUV and you had it, they were doing nothing to do proper. They weren't doing anything to do proper record keeping for it, because that made their numbers look really bad, that it actually was spreading all across the community. So they at one point had like 225 people in quarantine, and without having anything but rapid tests. So they hadn't had the PCR test done, so they weren't counted towards the totals, but they were positive on the rapid tests and were quarantined because the totals were just flying because of everybody coming back from Montreal with it. So yeah, now I don't have to be tested until June 18th again. So even if I think I have it, they won't test me, because they'll say, oh, well, you should have antibodies in your system and it's within the 90 days, so you're just going to come back as positive anyway, because I had the PCR test. And I'm like, oh, good, so I might actually get it and spread it to my kids again, because it's still all over my town, and nothing I can do about it because you're not going to test me. Awesome. So, yeah. But yeah. I guess I'm done for the night. Bye, guys. Love you all.